On June 25, 2009, the world came to a standstill. News organizations interrupted their regular programming as reports began circulating that Michael Jackson had been rushed to a Los Angeles hospital. At first, many people refused to believe the headlines. Rumors involving celebrities had surfaced before, and countless fans hoped this would be another misunderstanding. But within hours, the unimaginable became reality. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, had died at the age of 50. The announcement sent shockwaves across every continent. Fans gathered outside hospitals, television stations, and landmarks around the world, struggling to comprehend how one of history's most celebrated entertainers could be gone so suddenly. According to the transcript, the official investigation ultimately led to the conviction of Dr. Conrad Murray for involuntary manslaughter, bringing the legal case to a close. Yet for many of the people who knew Michael personally, the questions surrounding his final months never truly disappeared. Among those individuals was longtime bodyguard Bill Whitfield, who had spent years protecting Michael and his family during one of the most demanding periods of the singer's life. Looking back, Bill recalled a conversation that took place shortly after Michael agreed to perform the This Is It concerts in London. At the time, Michael quietly warned him that he was about to see the vultures coming. Bill admitted that he didn't fully understand what those words meant until preparations for the concerts intensified. As the comeback gained momentum, people who had been absent from Michael's life suddenly wanted to reconnect, while countless phone calls and requests poured in from individuals hoping to become part of the highly anticipated tour. According to the transcript, Bill later reflected that Michael had anticipated the intense attention surrounding the project long before those around him recognized how dramatically his world was about to change. As years passed, stories shared by former bodyguards, friends, and colleagues painted a picture of a man carrying extraordinary responsibilities behind the scenes while preparing for what was expected to be one of the biggest comebacks in entertainment history. Their memories did not rewrite the official findings of the investigation, but they offered a more personal perspective on the pressures Michael faced during his final months. They described an artist balancing relentless rehearsals, worldwide expectations, business obligations, and constant public attention at a time when millions were waiting for his return to the stage. Those reflections have continued to spark discussion because they focus less on sensational headlines and more on the human experience of someone living under unimaginable pressure. To understand why these conversations continue today, however, it is necessary to step inside Michael's private world through the eyes of the people who stood beside him every day and witnessed changes that the public rarely had the opportunity to see. Very few people had the opportunity to see Michael Jackson away from the cameras. While millions watched him perform on stage, only a small circle witnessed the challenges he faced in private. Among them was his longtime bodyguard, Bill Whitfield, whose job extended far beyond providing security. Day after day, he observed Michael's routine, protected his family, and watched the enormous responsibility that came with being the most recognizable entertainer in the world. According to Bill's recollections in the transcript, the closer Michael moved toward launching the This Is It concerts, the more dramatically his environment began to change. People who had not been involved in his life for years suddenly wanted meetings, phone calls, and opportunities to become part of the project. Bill later explained that Michael had predicted this shift long before it became obvious, warning him that success would attract people whose intentions were not always clear. Bill also remembered another side of Michael that rarely appeared in public. Away from the headlines, he described a father who worked hard to give his children as normal a childhood as possible, despite living under extraordinary circumstances. Security teams often changed hotels without warning after receiving threats, carefully shielding the children from situations they were too young to understand. Bill recalled that Michael insisted his children should never feel the constant fear that surrounded his own daily life. According to the transcript, the security team regularly dealt with threatening messages and unexpected risks, while making every effort to ensure the children remained unaware of the reasons behind sudden changes in travel plans or accommodations. These memories reveal a man whose greatest concern was often the safety and well-being of his family rather than his own comfort. When news of Michael's death reached Bill, he admitted that disbelief was his first reaction. Like millions of fans around the world, he struggled to accept what he was hearing until he watched Jermaine Jackson publicly confirm the devastating news. In the days that followed, Bill reflected not only on the loss itself, but also on the immense pressure Michael had carried during the final chapter of his life. He emphasized that, in his personal opinion, the singer had been surrounded by overwhelming stress, constant demands, and countless individuals trying to influence different aspects of his career. These reflections represent Bill's own perspective rather than official conclusions, but they offer a rare glimpse into the emotional burden he believed Michael faced behind closed doors. As more people who had worked closely with Michael began sharing their memories, a consistent picture started to emerge, one of a global icon carrying responsibilities that few people could truly imagine. Very few people had the opportunity to see Michael Jackson away from the cameras. While millions watched him perform on stage, only a small circle witnessed the challenges he faced in private. Among them was his longtime bodyguard, Bill Whitfield, whose job extended far beyond providing security. Day after day, he observed Michael's routine, protected his family, and watched the enormous responsibility that came with being the most recognizable entertainer in the world. According to Bill's recollections in the transcript, the closer Michael moved toward launching the This Is It concerts, the more dramatically his environment began to change. People who had not been involved in his life for years suddenly wanted meetings, phone calls, and opportunities to become part of the project. Bill later explained that Michael had predicted this shift long before it became obvious, warning him that success would attract people whose intentions were not always clear. Bill also remembered another side of Michael that rarely appeared in public. Away from the headlines, he described a father who worked hard to give his children as normal a childhood as possible, despite living under extraordinary circumstances. Security teams often changed hotels without warning after receiving threats, carefully shielding the children from situations they were too young to understand. Bill recalled that Michael insisted his children should never feel the constant fear that surrounded his own daily life. According to the transcript, the security team regularly dealt with threatening messages and unexpected risks, while making every effort to ensure the children remained unaware of the reasons behind sudden changes in travel plans or accommodations. These memories reveal a man whose greatest concern was often the safety and well-being of his family, rather than his own comfort. When news of Michael's death reached Bill, he admitted that disbelief was his first reaction. Like millions of fans around the world, he struggled to accept what he was hearing until he watched Jermaine Jackson publicly confirm the devastating news. In the days that followed, Bill reflected not only on the loss itself, but also on the immense pressure Michael had carried during the final chapter of his life. He emphasized that, in his personal opinion, the singer had been surrounded by overwhelming stress, constant demands, and countless individuals trying to influence different aspects of his career. These reflections represent Bill's own perspective, rather than official conclusions, but they offer a rare glimpse into the emotional burden he believed Michael faced behind closed doors. As more people who had worked closely with Michael began sharing their memories, a consistent picture started to emerge, one of a global icon carrying responsibilities that few people could truly imagine. By the beginning of 2009, Michael Jackson was preparing for what many believed would become one of the greatest comebacks in music history. The This Is It concerts were announced as a limited engagement in London, but overwhelming demand quickly led to dozens of additional performances being scheduled. What had started as a farewell series evolved into a production of enormous scale, involving hundreds of people, complex stage designs, advanced technology, and months of intensive rehearsals. Millions of fans around the world eagerly waited for the return of the King of Pop, while media attention intensified with every passing week. According to the transcript, those who worked closely with Michael observed that the expectations surrounding the concerts continued growing, placing extraordinary demands on both the production team and the artist himself. Bill Whitfield later shared that, from his perspective, Michael often appeared determined to meet those expectations despite carrying an immense workload behind the scenes. Rehearsals stretched for long hours, creative decisions required constant attention, and countless business discussions surrounded every aspect of the comeback. Bill recalled that Michael remained committed to delivering an unforgettable experience for his fans, refusing to lower his own standards, even when the schedule became increasingly demanding. These observations reflect Bill's personal recollections, rather than medical conclusions, but they illustrate how he viewed the pressures building around Michael during that period. According to the transcript, Bill believed the combination of public expectations, professional responsibilities, and the constant presence of people seeking access to Michael created an environment unlike anything he had witnessed before. Looking back, many of those closest to Michael have described his final months as a time filled with both hope and extraordinary pressure. On one hand, he was preparing to reconnect with millions of fans through performances that promised to celebrate his remarkable career. On the other, he faced the weight of global expectations that accompanied every decision he made. The official investigation ultimately determined the legal responsibility for Michael's death, but personal accounts from friends and colleagues continue to offer valuable insight into the environment surrounding those final weeks. Together, they reveal the human side of a man striving to deliver one last unforgettable performance while navigating responsibilities that extended far beyond the stage. As the comeback drew closer, however, the challenges facing Michael were no longer limited to rehearsals alone. Behind the scenes, another world of business interests, competing priorities, and constant demands was quietly taking shape around him. To millions of fans, Michael Jackson lived a life filled with unimaginable success. Stadiums sold out within minutes, his music crossed every international border, and his name became one of the most recognizable in modern history. But according to people who worked closest to him, extraordinary fame also created extraordinary risks. Bill Whitfield later explained that protecting Michael was unlike protecting any other celebrity because the level of public attention never truly disappeared. Every hotel, every airport, and every public appearance required careful planning. Security teams constantly evaluated potential threats, unexpected visitors, and situations that could quickly become dangerous. According to the transcript, Bill described an environment where maintaining Michael's safety demanded constant vigilance, with security personnel regularly adapting their plans as circumstances changed around them. As preparations for the This Is It concerts intensified, Bill recalled noticing a significant increase in the number of people attempting to gain access to Michael. Some arrived with legitimate business proposals, while others claimed they wanted to help or reconnect after years of little contact. Bill's recollections suggest that Michael had anticipated this surge in attention long before it became obvious to those around him. He remembered Michael warning that once the comeback gathered momentum, many individuals would suddenly appear with their own interests and expectations. These observations reflect Bill's personal perspective, rather than verified findings, but they offer insight into the atmosphere he believed surrounded Michael during the final chapter of his life. According to the transcript, Bill felt that managing the constant flow of requests, meetings, and outside influences became an increasingly challenging part of protecting Michael's privacy and allowing him to focus on rehearsals. Despite those challenges, the people closest to Michael consistently described someone who remained focused on his work and deeply committed to delivering an unforgettable experience for his fans. He continued rehearsing, refining performances, and preparing for what he hoped would be a remarkable return to the stage. Yet behind the excitement of the upcoming concerts existed a complicated world of security concerns, business responsibilities, and relentless public attention that few outsiders ever witnessed. Those experiences, shared years later by members of his security team, do not replace the official record, but they help explain why Michael's final months remain the subject of continued discussion. They reveal a man living under pressures unlike almost anyone else in entertainment history. And as those pressures continued to build, another equally important story was unfolding. One centered not only on Michael the performer, but on the extraordinary business empire that had made him one of the most influential figures in the global music industry. While the public admired Michael Jackson for his music, dancing, and unforgettable performances, there was another side of his career that received far less attention. Behind the scenes, Michael had become one of the most influential businessmen in the entertainment industry. Over the years, he made decisions that extended far beyond recording albums or selling concert tickets. He invested in music publishing, understood the long-term value of intellectual property, and built a business portfolio that reached across the global music industry. According to the transcript, people who worked closely with Michael believed he viewed ownership as just as important as artistic success, recognizing that controlling valuable music catalogs could shape the future of the industry for decades. Those decisions transformed him from a global entertainer into one of the most financially significant figures in modern music, giving him a level of influence that few artists had ever achieved. Bill Whitfield later reflected that many people underestimated how much responsibility came with managing an empire of that size. Beyond rehearsals for the This Is It concerts, Michael was constantly balancing business discussions, contractual obligations, and decisions involving valuable creative assets. Every major choice affected not only his own career, but also countless employees, advisors, and business partners connected to his worldwide operations. According to Bill's recollections in the transcript, Michael remained deeply involved in important decisions, even while preparing for his comeback, demonstrating that his commitment extended far beyond performing on stage. These observations represent Bill's personal experiences, but they highlight the extraordinary workload that surrounded Michael during the final months of his life and help explain why so many people viewed him as far more than simply a recording artist. As the London concerts drew closer, Michael stood at the center of one of the largest entertainment enterprises in the world. His music continued, generating enormous global demand. His business interests remained highly valuable, and millions of fans were preparing to witness what they believed would be one of the greatest comebacks in history. Yet with that success came increasing pressure, constant scrutiny, and responsibilities that very few people could truly understand. Those closest to him have often described a man determined to meet every expectation despite the enormous demands placed upon him. Looking back today, it becomes clear that Michael's final chapter was shaped not only by his extraordinary talent, but also by the immense weight of protecting a legacy and business empire, unlike any the music industry had seen before. As rehearsals intensified and opening night approached, however, events began unfolding that would forever change the course of entertainment history. As June 2009 approached, Michael Jackson appeared to be entering the final stage of preparation for what was expected to become one of the most anticipated concert series in entertainment history. Rehearsals for This Is It had become increasingly demanding, with dancers, musicians, technicians, and creative directors working together to perfect every detail. Michael remained heavily involved in every aspect of the production, carefully reviewing choreography, lighting, costumes, and musical arrangements. Those who attended the rehearsals often described moments when his creativity seemed as strong as ever, with his attention focused on delivering an unforgettable experience for fans who had waited years to see him perform again. According to the transcript, members of the production team recalled Michael continuing to refine performances until the very last rehearsals, determined to ensure that every element reflected the standard of excellence audiences expected from him. Behind the scenes, however, those closest to Michael later remembered a period filled with intense activity and constant demands. Bill Whitfield recalled that schedules changed frequently, meetings became increasingly numerous, and the pressure surrounding the comeback continued to grow. He described an environment where Michael was balancing creative responsibilities alongside business obligations, all while preparing for a series of performances that had captured worldwide attention. These reflections represent Bill's personal recollections rather than official findings, but they illustrate how he perceived the atmosphere surrounding Michael during those final weeks. According to the transcript, Bill believed that the pace of preparations had reached an extraordinary level, with everyone involved recognizing the enormous significance of the upcoming concerts and the expectations attached to them. Then, on the morning of June 25th, 2009, everything changed. News began spreading that Michael Jackson had suffered a medical emergency at his Los Angeles home. Within hours, hospitals, television networks, and fans around the world were consumed by uncertainty as conflicting reports circulated. Later that day, officials confirmed the devastating news that Michael Jackson had died, bringing an abrupt end to the comeback that millions had been waiting to witness. The official investigation that followed would determine the legal circumstances surrounding his death. But for many people who had worked beside him, including members of his security team, the emotional impact of that day never faded. They were left reflecting on the final weeks they had shared with him, wondering whether there had been signs they failed to recognize, and questions that might never be fully answered. Those deeply personal reflections would continue shaping public discussion for years, ensuring that Michael Jackson's final chapter remained one of the most closely examined stories in modern entertainment history. More than a decade after Michael Jackson's passing, one thing remains remarkably consistent. People who knew him best often remember his final months in very different ways. The official investigation established the legal circumstances surrounding his death, and Dr. Conrad Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Yet beyond the courtroom, former employees, friends, family members, and members of his security team have continued sharing their own personal memories and interpretations of the period leading up to June 25th, 2009. Some remember Michael as optimistic and excited about returning to the stage, convinced that "This Is It" would remind the world why he remained one of history's greatest entertainers. Others recall noticing signs of exhaustion brought on by the extraordinary demands of preparing for such an ambitious production. According to the transcript, Bill Whitfield has repeatedly emphasized that his observations reflect his own experiences working closely with Michael, offering a personal perspective rather than challenging the official findings of the investigation. Those differing recollections have fueled years of public discussion, not because they rewrite the facts established by investigators, but because they reveal how complex Michael's final chapter truly was. People standing only a few feet apart often experienced the same events in different ways. Some focused on his remarkable creativity during rehearsals, recalling an artist fully engaged in perfecting every performance. Others remembered the relentless pace, the constant meetings, and the growing pressure surrounding the comeback. Bill later reflected that Michael had spoken about people suddenly reappearing as the concerts approached, believing that success attracted individuals with many different motivations. These statements represent Bill's personal opinions based on what he witnessed and should be understood as such, but they help explain why conversations about Michael's final months continue even after the legal case concluded. According to the transcript, Bill has consistently encouraged people to remember Michael not only as a superstar, but also as a human being navigating extraordinary responsibilities behind the scenes. Perhaps that is why Michael Jackson's story continues to resonate around the world. It is not simply a story about fame or tragedy. It is the story of a man whose life touched millions, leaving behind memories that remain deeply personal to everyone who knew him. Some questions have been answered through official investigations, while others continue to be discussed through individual recollections that reflect different experiences and perspectives. Together, they paint a picture of a life far more complex than the headlines could ever capture. As those conversations have continued over the years, attention has increasingly shifted beyond the events of June 2009 to another subject that still sparks curiosity today: the extraordinary business decisions, financial interests, and legacy that Michael Jackson left behind, and why they continue to influence discussions long after his passing. Even after Michael Jackson's passing, discussions about his life did not end with the music. Attention soon turned toward the enormous business empire he had spent decades building. His catalog, publishing interests, recordings, trademarks, and licensing agreements represented assets worth hundreds of millions of dollars. As a result, countless legal matters, contractual obligations, and estate decisions continued long after June 2009. While much of this process followed the normal legal responsibilities associated with managing a major estate, it also fueled widespread public curiosity. Fans wanted to understand how Michael's legacy would be protected, who would oversee his creative work, and how future generations would experience the music he had left behind. According to the transcript, people close to Michael recognized that his influence extended far beyond entertainment, making the management of his artistic legacy an issue of worldwide interest, rather than simply a private family matter. Bill Whitfield later reflected on how Michael had always understood the value of owning his work and protecting the creative empire he had built throughout his career. In Bill's view, Michael wasn't simply focused on making hit records. He believed in preserving artistic control and thinking years into the future. Those observations represent Bill's personal perspective, but they help explain why Michael's business decisions continue attracting attention today. Following his death, the estate of Michael Jackson became responsible for managing his music, intellectual property, and numerous commercial interests. Over the years, new projects, documentaries, theatrical productions, and licensing agreements introduced Michael's work to entirely new audiences, ensuring that his influence remained as powerful as ever. According to the transcript, Bill believed Michael always wanted his artistic legacy to outlive him, allowing future generations to continue discovering his music long after he was gone. Looking back now, it becomes clear that Michael Jackson's story cannot be separated into simple categories of music, business, or personal life. Each part influenced the others, creating a legacy unlike anything the entertainment industry had seen before. While business decisions and legal discussions have naturally continued over the years, they exist alongside an even larger reality. Millions of people around the world still connect with Michael through his performances, his humanitarian efforts, and the timeless music he created. Those lasting achievements remain the foundation of his legacy. Yet despite official investigations, documented facts, and years of public discussion, certain questions continue to spark debate among fans and those who knew him personally. Distinguishing established facts from personal recollections has become one of the most important challenges in understanding Michael Jackson's final chapter. And that is exactly where the story leads next. More than 15 years after Michael Jackson's passing, one reality has become increasingly clear. His story is made up of two very different kinds of information. On one side are the facts established through official investigations, court proceedings, and publicly documented records. On the other are the personal memories, opinions, and interpretations shared by people who knew him, worked beside him, or witnessed parts of his private life. These personal accounts can offer valuable insight into Michael's character and the environment surrounding his final months, but they do not replace verified evidence or alter the conclusions reached through the legal process. According to the transcript, Bill Whitfield has consistently presented his recollections as his own experiences, while encouraging people to remember Michael as a compassionate father, dedicated artist, and human being whose life was far more complex than the headlines often suggested. That distinction has become increasingly important as documentaries, interviews, books, and online discussions continue exploring Michael's legacy. Some stories are supported by official records, while others reflect individual perspectives, shaped by personal experience. Responsible storytelling requires acknowledging that difference. Bill's observations, like those of many others who spent time with Michael, contribute to a broader understanding of his life, but they remain personal recollections rather than definitive explanations for every unanswered question. According to the transcript, Bill repeatedly emphasized the importance of judging Michael by the kindness, professionalism, and dedication he personally witnessed during the years they worked together, believing those qualities often received far less attention than the controversies that dominated public conversation. Perhaps that is why Michael Jackson's story continues to captivate people around the world. Every generation returns to his music, his performances, and the extraordinary legacy he left behind, while also trying to better understand the man behind the global phenomenon. Some mysteries may never be fully resolved, and some questions may continue to invite different opinions. But one fact remains beyond dispute. Michael Jackson transformed popular music, redefined live entertainment, and inspired millions of people across cultures and generations. His influence can still be seen in artists, filmmakers, dancers, and performers throughout the world. Long after the headlines have faded, his creative legacy continues speaking for itself. And in the end, that lasting impact may reveal more about who Michael Jackson truly was than any rumor, speculation, or unanswered question ever could. More than 15 years have passed since Michael Jackson's death, yet few artists continue to inspire the same level of curiosity, admiration, and discussion. Every year, millions of people discover his music for the first time, while longtime fans return to performances that still feel as extraordinary today as they did decades ago. New documentaries, books, interviews, and films continue exploring different chapters of his life, because Michael's influence extends far beyond the entertainment industry. He changed the way music videos were produced, transformed live concerts into cinematic experiences, and demonstrated that an artist could become a truly global cultural figure. According to the transcript, Bill Whitfield believes one reason people remained fascinated by Michael is because the public rarely had the opportunity to see the thoughtful, generous, and deeply committed individual he came to know while working beside him. Those personal reflections do not replace the historical record, but they offer another perspective on a man whose public image often overshadowed his private character. Looking back today, it becomes clear that Michael Jackson's story cannot be defined by a single event or a single headline. His career was filled with extraordinary achievements, groundbreaking creativity, and challenges that unfolded under an unprecedented level of public attention. The official investigation into his death established the legal facts surrounding the case, while the memories shared by family members, friends, employees, and bodyguards continue to add personal context to the life he lived behind closed doors. Those recollections sometimes differ because every individual experienced Michael from a different point of view. Together, however, they remind us that behind the global icon stood a father, a perfectionist, a visionary, and an artist whose passion for music never faded. According to the transcript, Bill has consistently encouraged audiences to remember Michael for the kindness he showed others, the dedication he brought to his work, and the lasting impact he made on everyone fortunate enough to know him personally. Perhaps that is the true reason Michael Jackson's final story continues to captivate the world. It is not simply because of unanswered questions or enduring public interest. It is because his legacy continues to live through the music, performances, and creative vision that transform popular culture forever. Every new generation finds something different in his work, whether it is inspiration, artistic innovation, or the reminder that extraordinary talent can leave an impact that outlasts a lifetime. The conversations surrounding his life may continue, and different perspectives will always exist, but one truth remains unchanged. Michael Jackson reshaped the history of entertainment in ways that can still be seen today. His voice continues to reach millions, his influence continues to inspire artists across the world, and his legacy continues reminding us that true greatness is measured not only by success during a lifetime, but by the generations that continue to be inspired long after the final curtain falls.